It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Sir Keir Starmer rounds on reform and Nigel Farage in the speech he hopes will end questions about his leadership.
When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain.
But a furious Nigel Farage hits back, saying the Prime Minister's comments are a disgrace and he's not fit for office. Also tonight, Donald Trump warns Hamas it has 3 or 4 days to accept his peace plan for Gaza or face a sad end. The US Defense Secretary announces a woke crackdown in America's military with new guidelines for women in combat. Plus, a special report from Britain's asylum seeker capital, Glasgow, a divided city with rising tensions. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. The Prime Minister has used his speech to the Labour Party conference to unleash a blistering attack on Reform UK and its leader, Nigel Farage. Sir Keir Starmer, battered by opinion polls putting Reform ahead of Labour, rounded on Mr Farage, accusing him of being a snake oil merchant who doesn't love Britain. In response, Mr Farage said Sir Keir's comments were a disgrace and he was not fit to be Prime Minister. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports now from Liverpool.
Applause for this Prime Minister rare these days.
Your Prime Minister, Mr Keir Starmer.
This a dark period as Keir Starmer battles his party and struggles in the polls. This speech then, the beginning of the fight back.
The country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We could choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline. It is a test, a fight for the soul of our country.
This a rallying call from a Prime Minister launching a battle against Nigel Farage and Reform UK, pitching Labour as the party of patriotic renewal and Reform as the party of decline.
And the question I ask seriously of Nigel Farage and Reform is, do they love our country? Do they want to serve our country, all of it, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country? Or do they just want to stir the pot of division because that works in their interests?
Keir Starmer 14 months into the job, but with a speech that felt like the start of a new campaign, repitching to the public by talking up some of his past achievements.
I make no apologies if they tilt towards working people, because it's working people who paid the price of Tory decline. That's why we invested in our NHS, fired up Great British Energy, stood up for British Steel.
This crowd in need of a pick-me-up, and he delivered.
A mark of a Britain built for all. Thank you, Conference.
And in a speech heavy on politics, there was new policy too. Keir Starmer scrapping Tony Blair's new Labour target that half of all young people should go to university. This speech heavy on symbols too.
I'm not just proud of the Union Jack and the Cross of St George. I'm also proud of the Saltire, of the Red Dragon, proud of our unions. So let's fly all our flags, Conference, because they're our flags. They belong to all of us, and we will never surrender them.
Reclaiming the flag and calling out the racists seeking to divide this country.
Yet if they're painted alongside graffiti, telling a Chinese takeaway owner to go home, that's not pride, that's racism. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal. We will renew this country until we can say with total conviction that Britain is built for all. Thank you, Conference. Thank you.
This a Prime Minister on the ropes, but he's come out fighting today, not just for his own job, but for what he describes as the soul of the nation. with reform racing away, Starmer's trying to convince his party and the public to keep the faith. He's asking you to pick a side, and he's asking you to pick him. You're giving it a bit of punch now, aren't you?
Is it because welly, Beth?
You're giving it a bit of welly.
Is it because what we believe in?
Is it because you feel like you're the underdogs after this sort of difficult 14 months?
I enjoy fighting for what I believe in. I know what I believe in, and Keir knows what he believes in. I wouldn't say anyone else had a plan. And what Keir and I have set out in our conference speeches in the last couple of days is our belief in Britain.
There's still opposition to him in the party, isn't there? Do you think he's put it to bed?
I just don't think that's a thing. I think we've seen this.
Well, it is a thing.
I don't think that sideshow really matters. What matters here is what we've just heard on the main stage from the Prime Minister, from the leader of our country.
Do you think Nigel Farage is a racist?
Well, look, I think actually what Nigel Farage was saying is worse than racism. I think it's immoral. I think that is an extreme policy, and what he was deliberately doing was sending a signal, a dog whistle to every racist in the country.
Back in London, the politician under fire took to his own cameras to respond.
This is a desperate last throw of the dice from a Prime Minister who's in deep trouble, a Prime Minister who can't even command the support of half of his own party. But I'm sorry to say, I now believe that he is unfit to be the Prime Minister of our country.
But in Liverpool, these party members look revived. The Prime Minister giving them a much-needed lift in these heavy political times, gambling that Starmer's patriotic pitch of renewal will revive his and Labour's fortunes. But it's a very, very long road ahead. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Liverpool.
Well, our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, joins us now live from Liverpool. Sam, he's had a bruising run. This was important for him, an attempt from the Prime Minister to get back on the front foot with a continued attack on Nigel Farage and reform. Will it land?
Well, look, Anna, I think that today was one of the best moments on its own terms that Keir Starmer has ever had. His best conference speech by far. He had the audience, the Labour members in the hall eating out of his hand. He provided the clearest definition yet of how the party can take on Reform UK and Nigel Farage. He also explained why he has working class credentials in a more credible way than I've heard in the past, by referring to the struggles of his father and his brother and his sister, better account than we have heard. However, it is quite possibly nowhere near enough to turn things around. Yes, he cleared the hurdle that he was set by his party today, and he did it quite comfortably. But I've been talking to cabinet ministers, aides, other figures in this government, and they are deeply, deeply unsure about the sustainability of this project. Can he reset? Can he deliver big, big policy? Lots of mess behind the scenes. There was no mention today of the biggest thing in British politics, the 20 to 30 billion pound black hole. I'm told there's no discussion at cabinet level of that. The question is, can he deal with the really difficult stuff? He got the vibes right today, but can he get the governing right in the months ahead?
Sam, live for us there in Liverpool. Many thanks. President Trump has issued a deadline for Hamas to accept his proposed peace deal for Gaza or face what he called a sad end. He says the militant group has 3 or 4 days to respond to the plan, warning that if it is rejected, he will let Israel do what they have to do. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has more.
No peace plan agreed and no peace on the ground. Gaza is still shuddering, attacked again and again. Its people surrounded by rubble, aware that their future is being discussed. But they are powerless on the rolling tides of international politics and negotiation.
Its fate is failure. Failure just like the ones before it. I'm not optimistic at all. We're finished. To put it plainly, we're finished. It was all for nothing.
Enough. We're exhausted, displaced countless times, our children left behind as martyrs. We don't know what to do anymore. At any price, whatever it takes. We just want it to stop.
So much depends now on Hamas, on whether it will agree to give up the 48 hostages it still holds, 20 of them believed to be alive, in return for a ceasefire. The American president optimistic, buoyed by the support of other nations.
We're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
There is widespread support for the deal among many Middle East countries.
Our commitment is steadfast when it comes to offering any support in ending this war, rebuilding, and providing any assistance of any kind for the people of Gaza.
But in Gaza and beyond, many Palestinians who feel this deal is a trap that will deny them a role in shaping their own future. And Israel's Prime Minister has done little to dispel those fears. So would he now accept a Palestinian state?
Absolutely not. And it's not written in the agreement either. But one thing we did say, we will strongly oppose a Palestinian state. And President Trump also said this. He said that he understands this. And he said it is obvious that this would be a huge reward for terrorism and a danger to the state of Israel. And of course, we won't agree to that.
Hamas says it will consider this deal in good faith. Donald Trump says he's expecting an answer in the coming days. And whether Hamas accepts, delays or refuses, the ramifications could be enormous. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
The US Secretary of State for War has told a rare meeting of his military top brass that he is ending woke culture and political correctness in the armed forces. Pete Hegseth said diversity and inclusion policies would be rowed back with changes including male-level fitness standards for all combat troops.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore.
Let's bring in our US correspondent, James Matthews. There we have it, anti-woke with a warrior ethos, troops on the streets of America, James, a new culture for what was the Department for Defence.
Hi, Anna. Yeah, it was quite the day. A reorientation of the military from Pete Hegseth, I think, putting woke as he would have it in the past. He spoke about, and as you heard him there, people being promoted for the wrong reasons, as he would say, race, gender quotas and historic firsts. He spoke about a lot of things, actually. I spoke about the look and appearance of the US military personnel, spoke about facial hair, no more beardos, he said, no more dudes in dresses, no more fat troops. He laid out a prototype for the future, and that's not necessarily female in his eyes. Combat troops, he said, would have to meet the highest male standard only of physical fitness. If that means no women qualify for combat roles, he said, then so be it. That's an issue, and not least because there are 17% of active duty personnel right now that is female, qualified on the basis of their brains, brawn and fitness standards that they achieved in common with their male comrades. In terms of other news content, clearly there was a line from the Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. He spoke about using US cities as a training ground for the military, spoke about a war within. This on a day when the career path was being laid out for his audience, the military top brass. He said that some of them would be involved in that action. That will be viewed as pretty dark and threatening, I think, in a number of places, US cities around the country. He cited Chicago, but there are other cities with the presence of the National Guard already deployed or underway. Places like Portland, Oregon, Memphis, Los Angeles, they will view the president's words as evidence that this is a man deploying the military as his own private army for political reasons.
James, thank you for that. In Germany, an aide to a senior far-right MP has been found guilty of spying for China for more than 20 years. The man, named only as Jian, passed information to Chinese intelligence about the European Parliament and the Alternative for Germany party while working for the AfD's Maximilian Krah. Our Europe correspondent Siobhan Robbins reports now from Dresden.
In court in Germany, a Chinese spy arrives to hear his fate. Jian is suspected of gathering intelligence for Beijing for around 20 years, spying on targets both in Germany and at the heart of European politics. Today, he was sentenced to almost 5 years in jail.
The prosecutor said this was one of the most serious cases of Chinese espionage in Germany, and much of the evidence relates to the 5 years that Jian worked as a political assistant in European Parliament, passing information to China. Now, Beijing categorically denies spying on Europe, but this case is a reminder of the power of the regime.
While working as an aide to this man, far-right AfD politician Maximilian Krah, prosecutors say Xi used his job to gather intel on European parliamentary discussions. Krah denies any wrongdoing. Raiding their Brussels offices last year, Jian was accused of crimes, including accessing 500 documents illegally and spying on Chinese dissidents. To Berlin-based activist Amy, the monitoring of opponents is no surprise. She says there's a cost to criticising the regime.
If I went back to Hong Kong now, it would be a one-way ticket to prison. I quite expect to be arrested right at the airport.
Are you ever safe?
No. The length that the Chinese regime would go and how systematically they plan this whole thing is really beyond the imagination of many of us. We are simply not vigilant enough. And I hope this Jian case would ring the alarm bells.
Also found guilty today, co-defendant Jackie X, who got a shorter suspended sentence for feeding Jian details of military passengers, cargo and weapons shipments at Leipzig airport. One of Germany's regional spy chiefs told me China are sophisticated players.
The Chinese are very creative in planting their spies and information sources and others. That's not surprising, but that, of course, the European Parliament didn't have the right security measures to at least check on their staff. That was something that surprised me very much.
In a statement, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs says China firmly opposes the sensationalization of the so-called Chinese spy threat and urges the relevant parties to cease spreading rumors, slandering and smearing China. But as Jian begins his jail term, the question remains how a Chinese spy got a job at the centre of European politics and managed to stay undetected for so long. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Dresden.
Child safety groups have welcomed a clarification from the government that child abuse victims will be included in its strategy for tackling violence against women and girls. It comes after 10 organisations raised concerns with ministers after Sky News published a draft Home Office document that said child sexual abuse and exploitation was not explicitly within the scope of the strategy. Sky's Molly Malone has more.
Children are once again being left in the air with no one advocating for them at the moment.
Last month, we told Poppy's story. She was sexually abused and raped by her grandfather when she was 4 years old.
VAWG is violence against women and girls. If you take child sexual abuse out of it, where are the girls?
And that was her reaction after Sky News revealed this internal Home Office document. It's titled Draft Definition of VAWG, that's violence against women and girls. It then says child sexual abuse and exploitation is not explicitly within the scope of their strategy. Poppy's concerns were later echoed as 10 child protection organisations wrote to the government expressing concern.
There has been some reporting that it would not include child abuse victims.
And now, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips has responded, writing in a letter, Let me be clear that children who experience sexual abuse and exploitation are considered in the new Violence Against Women and Girls strategy as we take concrete actions to tackle these crimes. She went on to say, I hope the above clarifies the government's position.
We're hopeful that the words in the minister's letter show that they are thinking again and making sure that they can draw out the really clear links between tackling violence against girls and tackling child sexual abuse. But the proof will be in the pudding.
In a statement, the government told us, we have been clear throughout that action to tackle child sexual abuse has always been included in the upcoming Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. We will also tackle these horrendous crimes through a distinct and transformative workstream, which will include acting upon the recommendations of both the Casey and Jay reviews.
My message to the government is that if you're going to make child sexual abuse a separate thing, we need it now.
A distinct workstream is welcomed by campaigners, but it doesn't exist yet. And so there is still some scepticism. Victims and charities are clear. Any plan to tackle violence against women and girls must have children at the centre of it. Molly Malone, Sky News.
At least 10 people have been killed and dozens more wounded in Pakistan after militants set off a car bomb outside the headquarters of the country's paramilitary security forces. A warning, we are about to show you the moment the bomb exploded. Well, police say 6 attackers who were inside the vehicle engaged troops in a shootout before detonating the bomb in the southwestern city of Quetta. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. Rescuers have run oxygen and water to dozens of students trapped in the rubble of a collapsed school building in Indonesia as they work to free survivors. At least 3 people were killed and more than 100 injured when the building in East Java came down. South Africa's ambassador to France has been found dead outside a high-rise hotel in Paris. French authorities say Nkosi Nathi Emmanuel Mathethwa had been reported missing by his wife last night after she received a text message from him which worried her. The Spanish holiday island of Ibiza and Formentera have been hit by widespread flooding. The popular Mediterranean destinations have been placed under red alert by the country's National Weather Service, which has warned of extraordinary danger. New figures show Glasgow has a higher proportion of housed asylum seekers than any other local authority in the country. And now council leaders in the city are demanding a pause on new asylum seekers being sent there, claiming the system is being overwhelmed. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis has spoken to local people, many of whom have strong views on the issue.
The slogan for a city that carries the weight of Britain's asylum system. More people housed here in Glasgow than anywhere else. But for a place celebrated for its welcome, the strain is showing.
What is it you're angry about?
For most, the Scottish saltire is a symbol of compassion.
Too many people coming in.
For others, a protest, a way to voice disquiet.
I'm proud to be Scottish.
Is there a kind of anti-immigration?
I don't want them here.
Are you racist?
No.
It's actually went out of control.
Up the road in a wealthy suburb, this 84-year-old woman asked us not to show her face.
It looks like they're going to overspill us. We'll be the underdogs.
Who's they?
All them ones that's coming in, especially Muslims, they will be majority.
What's your evidence for that?
I don't have any evidence.
There's too many immigrants.
Mum Audrey blames her struggles on immigration too.
I've got an older son who lives with me. Can't get a house, but yet you come into this country and you get a house in the border. And I know people say they don't, but they do. There's more black in every other colour than there is white.
Certainly in the past 6 months there's been a lot of chat about immigration.
But while it is a rising concern among some, polls suggest it's not a top priority for the majority of Scots.
People move away. We need people who are going to move in as well.
You're pro-immigration?
I am pro-immigration.
And for lawyers, misinformation is hijacking the debate.
When a person's in the United Kingdom, they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to claim benefits. They're not stealing your jobs.
Glasgow's roots in this stretch back 25 years. The council signed up to welcome asylum seekers in return for UK government funding, a system known as dispersal.
Glasgow is the only one in Scotland, was because I think it had at the time a large estate of available housing, and this would be high-rise housing. Many of those high-rise flats have now been demolished. What that does is it means that we still have housing issues for people. Where are they going to live?
And it's housing that is now at the centre of this crisis. When asylum seekers are allowed to permanently stay, councils take responsibility. Glasgow says that is now its #1 single cost, with leaders demanding a temporary pause. The homelessness laws here in Scotland say councils must house someone without a home, and that includes refugees who've been given the right to stay. It's far more generous than in England, where they usually only have to house someone with a priority need. And that, it's claimed, is drawing people to communities like this one and adding to an already pressured environment. Less than 30 miles away in Falkirk, this hotel has become the centre of protest.
I was in Europe before here, but I came by boat.
This man living at the hotel says he fled Iraq.
10 years I've been in Europe. Why the UK? Because I couldn't stay anymore in Europe.
Why not?
Because they deporting people to their country. I've been living in Germany for a long time.
The criticism from some is that people arriving into this country on small boats like yourself are all men.
You want to come here, it's not easy for family. You have to cross the water.
We are all human beings. Let's just live peacefully.
And this man from West Africa is also waiting to see if he can stay in the UK.
What is important is not everybody in the hotel is bad, does it? People, some of them, if you listen to what they went through, you will sympathize with them.
The Home Office says it is shifting people out of these hotels. But as the costs mount and tempers for some rise, the politics of welcome are being tested like never before. Conor Gillis, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the broadcaster and commentator Duncan Barks and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Soda. Welcome, lovely to see you both. And among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of the Daily Telegraph after Keir Starmer's Labour leadership speech today. The headline, "I won't surrender our flag." That and plenty more, of course, when we come back.